There is a man in your life, or there was one, and something about him never fully made sense to you. He was warm, then suddenly cold. He was present, then inexplicably gone. He looked at you in ways that made you feel like the most important thing in the universe, and then, without warning, he disappeared. Not physically, not always, but emotionally he vanished, retreated into something so far inside himself that no amount of reaching could pull him back to the surface. And you told yourself the story that most people tell themselves in that situation, that he didn't care enough, that you weren't enough, that love, real love, would have stayed. But here's the truth, and this is going to disturb you because it should. His distance was not the absence of love. His distance was the love. Expressed in the only language he had ever been taught was safe. Let that settle for a moment, because what I'm about to walk you through is not a comfortable idea. It is not a reassuring one. It is the kind of truth that, once you see it, you cannot unsee. It will change the way you understand men, it will change the way you understand yourself, and it will force you to confront something deeply unsettling about how we all, every single one of us, protect the things we cannot afford to lose. The human psyche is not built for transparency. It was never designed to be an open window. It was designed to be a fortress, with gates and guards and hidden rooms that even its own owner has never entered. This is not weakness. This is architecture, the architecture of survival. And within that architecture there is one trait, one single, specific, devastating trait that causes a man who loves deeply to withdraw from the very person he loves most. Not because he wants to, but because he cannot help it. And this is where it gets dangerous, because this trait is invisible. You will not find it in his words. You will rarely find it in his behavior. You will find it only in the gap between what he feels and what he allows himself to do. In the silence after he almost said something real, in the way he held you and then left before morning, in the way he chose safety, emotional, psychological, existential safety, over you, over himself, over the possibility of something that terrified him precisely because it was real. What is this trait? It is not fear of commitment in the shallow sense your culture has taught you to believe in. It is not emotional immaturity, though it can look identical from the outside. It is not avoidance, though avoidance is its most visible symptom. The trait is this: an unconscious belief that his love is dangerous. Not metaphorically dangerous, not romantically dangerous in the way love songs romanticize pain. Dangerous in the deepest psychological sense. Dangerous to you, dangerous to himself, dangerous to the very thing he wants most to protect. Most people don't see this. They see the behavior, and they judge the behavior. They see a man pulling away and they conclude he doesn't care. They see emotional withdrawal and they read it as emotional unavailability. But they are reading the symptom and missing the source entirely. The source lives in the subconscious. It lives in a place that was formed long before he ever met you, formed in moments of early experience, in early lessons about what love does to the people who receive it and what it does to the people who give it. It lives in the quiet, horrifying conclusion he drew as a child, or as a young man, or in some crucible moment of his past. The conclusion that when he loves someone fully, something goes wrong. And here's what's unbearable about that. He doesn't even know he believes it. This is the nature of repression. It does not announce itself. It does not sit in the front of the mind, visible, articulable, available for examination. It sits beneath everything. It operates like a current under still water, invisible on the surface, but capable of pulling you under in ways you never saw coming. He has repressed this belief so thoroughly for so long that it no longer feels like a belief. It feels like reality. It feels like just the way things are. It feels like the simple, obvious, undeniable truth that closeness leads to destruction, that vulnerability leads to loss, that the more he lets someone in, the more he opens the door to the one thing he has spent his entire life engineering against. And the cruelest part, the cruelest, most psychologically precise part of this entire mechanism, the more deeply he loves you, the further he runs. Not because he wants distance, but because his love has weight to it, real, enormous, terrifying weight. And he has learned, somewhere in the buried architecture of himself, that the things he loves most are the things most likely to be taken, or broken, or destroyed by him, by something in him, by the very force of what he feels. So he keeps his distance not to protect himself from you. He keeps his distance to protect you from him, or to protect himself from the unbearable experience of watching something he loves disappear. Or both, at once, simultaneously, because the subconscious does not deal in clean, logical separations. It deals in tangled, overlapping, contradictory truths that operate below the level of language. And you felt it, didn't you? You felt the love. You know it was real. You can distinguish the quality of it from everything else you've experienced, because real love has a specific texture, a specific gravity that cannot be faked and cannot be mistaken for anything else. But you also felt the withdrawal, the invisible wall, the moment the door closed, even while he was still standing in front of you. And you've been trying to reconcile those two things ever since. There is something the ancient architects of the mind understood that modern culture has almost entirely forgotten. The most powerful forces in a human life are the ones that never surface. They are not the emotions you feel consciously, not the fears you can name and examine and discuss. They are the ones buried so deep that they have merged with identity itself. They are not things you have, they are things you are. And this is where the real story begins, because what we are talking about, this single trait that drives a deeply loving man to withdraw, is not a surface wound. It is a foundational one. It is a belief system installed so early, reinforced so consistently, and defended so vigorously by the psyche that it has become structural. It holds up everything else. To question it is not merely to question a behavior or a pattern, it is to threaten the entire psychological edifice built on top of it. And the human mind will not allow that without a fight. Here's the hidden truth that almost no one acknowledges. Withdrawal is not passive. It is not simply the absence of closeness. It is an active, relentless, psychologically sophisticated defense mechanism. It requires work, constant, exhausting, invisible work, the work of monitoring distance, the work of calibrating how much warmth to show before it becomes dangerous, the work of constructing believable reasons, to you and to himself, for why things cannot be different. But here's the truth, and this is the part that will crack something open in you. He does not experience this work as labor. He experiences it as instinct. He experiences it as the natural, obvious, inevitable way of being in relation to another person, because that is what repression does. It takes a learned pattern and buries it so deep that it stops feeling like a pattern at all. It starts feeling like personality, like character, like just the kind of person he is. And this is where the tragedy deepens, because he is not pretending. He is not playing emotional games, though it can look exactly like that from the outside. He is not deliberately withholding himself as a form of control, though the effect is often indistinguishable from it. He is operating from a place so far beneath conscious awareness that the very idea of operating differently doesn't register as a choice. It doesn't register as a possibility. It registers as something foreign, something threatening, something that at the deepest level of his psychology feels like annihilation. And this is where it gets dangerous, because when something feels like annihilation, the organism does not respond with curiosity. It does not respond with openness. It responds with every defense mechanism available. It shuts down. It rationalizes. It creates distance, and then creates stories about why the distance is necessary, logical, even kind. He will tell himself he is protecting you. He will believe it. He will tell himself that you deserve better, someone more available, someone without his particular internal weather. He will offer this thought not as deflection but as genuine self-assessment, genuine concern for your well-being. And this, paradoxically, will be one of the most truthful things he ever says to you, not because it is accurate, but because it reveals exactly what he believes about himself, that his love at full force is a hazard, a risk, something you would be wise to step back from. Most people don't see this. They hear a man say, "You deserve better," and they hear rejection. But that is not what is being spoken. What is being spoken is the deepest, most unguarded confession a man like this can make. I am afraid of what I am capable of wanting. I am afraid that my wanting will destroy something. I am afraid that if I let myself love you without restraint, without a hand on the brake, without the careful management of proximity and distance, I will lose you in the most catastrophic way possible. And I would rather lose you slowly, at a distance I can control, than lose you suddenly, in the moment when I have finally let myself have you completely. There is a name for this in the deep grammar of the psyche. It is called the defense against desire. The unconscious logic that says, the thing you want most is the thing most likely to hurt you, so you must construct a life in which you never fully reach for it. And here is the unbearable irony at the center of all of this. In attempting to prevent the loss, he creates it. In pulling back to protect the connection, he severs it. In managing his love carefully enough to keep it safe, he makes it impossible for that love to ever be received, expressed, or returned in the way it was always meant to be. He is his own trap, built by his own hands, using material collected from every moment in his past when love and loss arrived in the same breath. And you, in trying to reach him, in trying to close the distance, in trying to show him that this time will be different, that you are not a threat, you have been doing something extraordinarily brave without knowing it. You have been pressing your hand against the exact wall his entire psychology has been dedicated to maintaining. And he has felt it, every time, with a precision that is almost violent in its clarity. Because this is the other thing no one tells you. Men who withdraw from love are not numb to it. They are acutely, painfully, almost unbearably sensitive to it. The withdrawal is not evidence of reduced feeling. It is evidence of feeling so intense that the psyche classified it as dangerous and quarantined it before it could reach the surface. Think about what that means. Think about what it costs a person to live like that, to feel enormously, constantly, and to spend equal energy ensuring that what you feel never fully arrives at the place where it could change anything. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because you have done this too. Perhaps not in love, perhaps not in the same way, perhaps not to this degree, but you know the architecture. You know what it is to have something you want and to stand just far enough away from it that you can tell yourself you're not really reaching. You know what it is to protect yourself so thoroughly from loss that you ensure in advance that you will never fully have the thing you are protecting yourself from losing. The difference is one of degree, and the thing that separates his degree from yours is a single trait, the unconscious conviction, forged at a specific moment in his personal history, that his love specifically causes harm. Not love in general, his. Here is where we have to go somewhere truly uncomfortable. Because up until now, you may have been listening to this as a story about him, a psychological portrait of a specific kind of man, a map of the interior of someone you know or have known or have loved. But this is not only a story about him, this is a story about the pattern between two people. And that pattern, the specific, repeating, agonizing pattern of reach and retreat, of closeness and withdrawal, of almost and never, that pattern requires two participants, two psychologies, two sets of unconscious beliefs that find each other in the dark and lock together with a precision that feels, from the outside, like fate. And this is where it gets dangerous, because the question you have been avoiding is the one that matters most. What did you bring to this? Not in the sense of blame. Blame is the smallest, most useless response to psychological truth, but in the sense of understanding. Because if you want to see this clearly, truly clearly, you have to be willing to look at both sides of the mechanism simultaneously. Why do people who crave closeness consistently find people who cannot provide it? The answer is not random. The answer is not bad luck. The answer is that the psyche is drawn toward confirmation of its deepest beliefs, not its desired beliefs, not the beliefs it holds consciously, not the beliefs it articulates in therapy or in journals or in conversations with its closest friends. The beliefs it holds beneath all of that, the beliefs it formed before language was fully available to process them. And for many people, more than you would ever suspect, more than cultural narrative ever acknowledges, one of those deepest, most foundational beliefs is this: I am too much to be fully loved. Or its twin: the kind of love I need doesn't actually exist. Or its sibling: if someone truly knew me completely, without the careful editing I perform on myself every day, they would leave. These beliefs do not announce themselves. They operate silently, below the threshold of awareness, shaping every choice without ever submitting themselves for conscious examination. And when a person carrying this belief encounters a man who loves deeply but withdraws, something clicks into place, something that feels uncomfortably, almost erotically like recognition. Because his withdrawal confirms the belief, his distance validates the suspicion. The fact that even a man who clearly, visibly, undeniably feels something for you cannot quite bring himself to choose you fully. That confirms the thing you have always, quietly, suspected about yourself. And here is the most disorienting thing. The confirmation hurts, but it also comforts, because it is familiar, because the psyche would rather inhabit a painful certainty than a terrifying unknown. Because the story of, I am someone who is almost chosen, almost loved, almost enough, is a story you know how to survive. You have been surviving it for years. It has a shape you recognize, a rhythm you can breathe inside of. The story of, I am fully chosen, completely loved, and irreversibly enough. That story has no map. That story requires you to become someone who can receive what they claim to want. And receiving is terrifying in ways that wanting never is, because receiving makes you responsible. It makes you present. It makes you vulnerable in a way that reaching towards something just out of grasp never does. And this is where the repression deepens, because now we are not talking about his unconscious pattern alone. We are talking about the unconscious collaboration between two people who are both, in different ways, protecting themselves from the very thing they claim to be pursuing. His distance is not incidental to your dynamic. It is essential to it, not because you designed it, not because you chose it consciously, but because some part of you, the part that formed its core beliefs about love before it had the words to question them, that part recognized his distance as the exact shape of love it knew how to inhabit. And this is the part where most people stop listening, because this is the part where the mirror turns, and the reflection is uncomfortable, and the natural impulse is to find a reason to dismiss what is being said, to decide it doesn't apply, to create a small protective distance between yourself and the truth being offered. But here's the truth. The impulse to look away is itself the evidence. It is the mechanism in action. The same mechanism operating in you, doing what it has always done, keeping you just far enough from the full truth that you can remain where you are. Think about the moments in this dynamic when you felt most alive, most intensely present, most electrically awake in your own skin. Were they the moments of peace, of settled, certain, quiet connection? Or were they the moments of almost? The moments when he was just close enough that you could feel the heat of what could be, and just far enough that you had to hold your breath. You have been living inside a story. Everyone lives inside a story. The question is never whether you have one, it is whether you can see it. Whether you can step far enough outside its frame to recognize it as a story at all, rather than simply as reality, as the way things are, as the inevitable shape of your life and the people in it. And the story you have been living, the one with the man who loves you fully but cannot fully arrive, that story has a hidden architecture. It has a foundation made of beliefs laid down in the dark, in moments you may barely remember, by a version of you that did not yet have the capacity to question what it was being taught. And here is the final truth. the one that everything in this conversation has been building toward. The distance between you and this man is not created by his psychology alone. It is the physical manifestation of the distance inside both of you. The space between what you feel and what you will allow yourself to have. Between who you are and who you have decided, at a level below language and choice, that you are allowed to become. His withdrawal is the outer form, but the inner form, the one that persists regardless of which man is in front of you, regardless of how much he loves you, regardless of how clearly he shows it, the inner form is yours. It is the distance you maintain from your own fullness, from your own worth, from your own unedited, unmanaged, undimmed capacity to be loved without needing to earn it, prove it, survive it, or metabolize the anxiety of receiving it. And this is where it gets dangerous, because the defense mechanisms that protect us from this realization are the most sophisticated ones we have. They do not look like defenses. They look like wisdom. They look like discernment. They look like the hard-won knowledge of someone who has been hurt enough to know better. They say, "I'm just being realistic." They say, "I've seen how this goes." They say, "I protect myself because no one else will." And underneath all of it, beneath the rhetoric and the armor and the carefully constructed narrative of a person who has learned to need very little, underneath all of it, there is something that has been waiting, with extraordinary patience, for permission to be different. Not fixed, not healed in the linear, clinical sense of a wound that closes and leaves no trace, but different, differently organized, differently oriented toward what is possible, toward what you are capable of, toward the specific quality of love that requires you to stand in the full light of your own experience without flinching, without editing, without the protective retreat into almost. Here is what no one tells you about a man who loves deeply and keeps his distance. He is not showing you who he is showing you where he is stuck. There is a profound and essential difference between the two. Who he is, the core of him, the thing that chose you, the thing that feels you with such unbearable precision, that is real. That is not in question. But where he is stuck is also real, and it is also not going anywhere without something the psychological architecture of avoidance almost never allows. A confrontation with the source, not a conversation about the behavior, not a discussion about the pattern, a confrontation, honest, sustained, probably terrifying, with the original belief. The belief that his love is dangerous, that it destroys, that the people he chooses are, in some way he cannot fully articulate, safer when he keeps his intensity at arm's length. And that confrontation cannot come from you. You cannot be the one to deliver it because you are inside the dynamic. You are, in his unconscious map of the world, both the reason for the distance and the most powerful evidence for why the distance is necessary. The more you pursue, the more the belief is confirmed. The more you reach, the more his psychology interprets your reaching as a threat to the thing it is trying to protect. This is the cruelty of it, the perfect, systemic, self-perpetuating cruelty of it. And the question, the final, irreducible, unavoidable question, is whether you are going to obey yours. Because there is a version of you that does not need the almost. There is a version of you that can stand inside certainty without dismantling it. There is a version of you that does not require the particular electricity of the edge, because it has found something that the edge never offered. The deep, quiet, foundational electricity of being fully present in a love that does not require you to hold your breath. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is not a distant aspiration. It is the person you were before the story was installed, before the beliefs took hold, before the architecture of protection replaced the architecture of openness. It is still there, and it is waiting, not for him to close the distance, not for the dynamic to resolve, not for the right circumstances to finally arrive. It is waiting for you to make one simple, seismic, life-altering choice. To stop protecting yourself from the love you actually want. Because the man who loves you deeply and keeps his distance is not your obstacle. He is your mirror. And the distance you see when you look at him, the maddening, beautiful, heartbreaking distance, is not only his, it is yours. And that is the most important thing you will ever understand about love.